name's Christy. Welcome to my corner. Thank you for joining me on this Tuesday where we talk about how I took fabric like this and made it into fabric like this. But before we get to that, I want to welcome my new subscribers. Thank you for joining me on my artistic and crafty adventures, and welcome back everyone who's been hanging out with me the past few days, weeks, or months, however long you've been with me. It's been so nice to get to know you here in the comments on YouTube and also on Instagram. And if you're not following me on Instagram, you can find me at Dr._Christy. I'll put it right here. And that's where I post pictures of kind of my crafting throughout the week and other pictures and pictures of my dog and baking that I don't film and baking that I do film. Yeah, I mean, it's sort of like my kind of daily posts go there. So if you're interested in seeing what I'm doing during the week, Dr._Christy. This is a channel about embroidery and cross stitch and other textile crafts and baking and history and the history of all of those things. So if any of that is interesting to you and you're not subscribed, I'd love to have you subscribe and stick around. Yeah, so I've been experimenting with natural dyeing and with botanical printing is essentially what it's called. And so in this video, I'm going to show you how I do that. I had this linen, and this is a kind of heavyweight linen that I got from fabricstore.com, and it's 100% linen. It's very stiff. It is pre-treated for dyeing. It's ready for dyeing, so I didn't mordant it or anything like that. And I had flowers, these flowers right here, that I bought for the purpose of creating fabric. And there are two different outcomes, essentially. Once I started with wet fabric and once I started with dry fabric. So I'm going to turn you around, show you how I did it, and then we'll come back and I'll show you the finished pieces, talk about what I liked and didn't like, some pitfalls that I had that I would do again, and then also I have a couple other pieces back here that I showed in my floss tube and that I posted on Instagram that are also done in the same way. And essentially you smash it with a hammer. So let me turn you around so you can see how I do that. And then I will see you back here when those are done. So I have my tools. I have the petals, which I'm a little disappointed they are not quite as vibrant as they were 2 days ago. I removed the stamens because it was basically like black powder and I didn't like that. And this is probably 4 or 5 tulips. I have a dry linen. I'll do a wet linen next. And then I have some of these really shriveled up flowers. I don't know that they will do anything, but I figured I would try anyway. I have a hammer. This is a hammer I got with a leather working, like a rivet kit. And so it has a kind of rubber, I don't know, mallet situation going on here, which I think is better for the linen because I don't want to like ruin the linen. And then I have a piece of wax paper. Last time I used parchment paper, but wax paper is way less useful for me for other purposes. So if I want to do this, I figured wax paper would work just fine. And I don't really have a plan for my pattern. In the past I had done, you know, florally looking, like, so it looked like a flower, but I kind of want something more random this time and see how it looks. I do kind of want to sprinkle these guys throughout. I kind of like, my hope is that this gets very orange, but I don't think it will. I think I waited too long, but you know, I had other things to do, so I waited. But I'm turning them over because I want this yellow, and I just, in my mind, there's more yellow on the inside of the petal than on the outside of the petal. And these are the tulips that I showed you earlier. So let's push them all together. Put a little black in there. I'm going to try the, I have a, like I said, I'm going to do a wet one later, and these might work better on the wet one. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. And then you put the paper on top and you hit it with a hammer. thing about the wax paper is that it's relatively see-through, so I can see when I've smashed it really nice. And then I want to kind of scoot everything in so it's not, you know, flying out of the area I want to. So I think that that's all I'm going to do. And I don't know if you can see, I'll try and zoom in sort of in post-production, but the way I can tell that it's like done, it's sort of smashed as much as it's going to smash, is because you can see the grain of the fabric through it. So that's why the wax paper worked way better. All right, let's see what it looks like. I mean, it looks disgusting. The dryness of these did not work. That's for sure. But when they were wet, it makes really nice purples. So I did get some of those nice purples in. Yeah, this is kind of an interesting combination here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let this dry, and then I'm going to go over it with like a lint roller. I'm probably actually just going to use tape, like packing tape, but that'll pick up all of the dust. However, you see how, you know, even the dry stuff, once it hits the wet, turns a color. So that's very interesting for when I do my wet one. So here we go. Here's this. That's kind of interesting, and I think that'll be nice. We'll let this go for now, but that is a good start. So that's my first one. I will put this to the side and let it dry. And here we have a second one that is damp. It is not sopping wet, it is damp. So let me get my petals, and then I will come back and we'll hit this one. All right, so once again, we have our petals, we have our wetness, and it looks like I picked up a little bit of the stuff from the table, but that's okay. It'll just be covered with more. So let's lay these out how we want them. And it looks like I have more flowers here. I was gonna, for some reason, leave like 2 flowers unsmashed, which made no sense. So I just got the rest of them. And I have some of these dark ones, and actually I have some wet dark ones, so like not completely dry dark ones. So that's fun. So let's set these all up and see what happens. This is definitely very interesting. I really like this one actually quite a lot. Ooh, this one's really good. This one's really good. I do wish that I had done this earlier so I could like see the really orange parts. I'm going to throw a little bit up here and pound that again up here and down here. So that way we get a nice sort of square, and maybe in here. Maybe some right there. Let's do this some more. And again, you know, you can see that it's smashed. The wax paper works way better than the parchment paper. There we go. This is absolutely revolting. But I really like this one. I really like this one. Ew, it's disgusting. It smells like florally sweet. It's very weird. This is very weird. But I do like this one. So that's cool. So again, I'm going to wait until it dries. I'm going to leave it flat to dry. Wait till it dries. So I think when you're going for like a random pattern, the wet is much better. So here's the wet. And here's the dry. Now this also used less, I put less flowers in this one than this one. But I love that mottled look. We'll have to see what that looks like when it dries. So I think that that's that. I will let them dry. I'll go over them with tape. And I will show you what they look like when they're all ready. But that's essentially it. So I'm going to flip you back around and it will be when these are dry. And you can see the finished product. So that's it, everyone. That's how easy it is to dye fabric with botanicals. This is the dry one, which is not showing up very well. I have to be, there we go. That's a little bit better. It's a much deeper color than it looks on here, but that's what the dry one looked like. And as you can see, there is definitely more definition in the petal outlines, right? So it's a very clearly defined petals. I don't know that I love this one as much because for me, the purpose of this is to give me an interesting kind of mottled effect for stitching on. I do kind of want to try some abstract embroidery stitching this summer. And when I'm feeling kind of creative, use these. So I might actually wash this and see if that spreads the color a bit. This is the wet one, which is the one I showed you at the beginning. And I really like this one. I don't necessarily love the speckles, kind of like the very dark speckles. That is from the crumbled pieces that kind of landed on there as it was drying, which I put on there just to see what would happen. But I think, again, when I use it for stitching, it'll be really pretty and I'll kind of, you know, they'll mimic French knots and stuff like that. So that's the piece that started out wet. Those are the two that I did on camera with you, but I did do a couple before that. And those were done with those tulips and with the purple tulips that I picked up from the campus. This is a wisteria that I picked one morning while walking, and it looks interesting, right? I mean, I think that could be a really cool background for a design. And then there are two others that I did that I showed on Instagram that were done with the flowers from campus. So this one was done dry. And again, it's very clearly defined. I think I might wash this. I don't love it so much. I don't love the middle. The middle looks kind of muddy. So I might wash this one. And this one was done wet. And then I washed it. And this is what it looked like before I washed it. So you can see the difference. There's a big difference. So I'm thinking that if I wash the other ones that I don't love so much, that might soften it up a bit. So that is how I did some eco printing, some botanical printing on fabric. I think there'll be really interesting backgrounds for stitching this summer, like kind of organic stitching, or maybe even other kinds of stitching. I don't know. I'm not feeling super creative right now in this sort of organic area. So I'm not going to stitch on them. I'm going to keep them until I'm feeling less kind of busy and I want to stitch on them. But I'm pretty pleased with how they turned out. So let's talk about some things I would have done differently. Number one, this is what the tulips looked like that did this printing on camera, okay? This is what they looked like when I bought them. They changed color when I bought, like I waited too long. They lost their really vibrant orange color, which is what I wanted, and it turned kind of brownish and muddy-ish, which I can work with and is fine, but it's not really what I was going for when I bought those flowers. So I may kind of see the flowers that start blooming now that we're getting into spring, and we might have more flowers available to me that are kind of orange and red and bright, because I'm just seeing, when I walk around town, all I see are kind of pink and purple flowers. So I definitely would have done it earlier had I known they would lose that much color. I also don't know how permanent this color is, because sometimes botanical dyes degrade. So things like beet juice, right? Beet juice and beets dye a really nice pinky red color, but they quickly degrade into like a beige. Like the color just is not stable. So I don't know how stable this color is, which is another reason why I kind of want to let them sit a bit to see what they look like in 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 2 months, right? That way I know what I'm getting into when I start stitching on them, because I don't want to like put lots of time into stitching on them and then in 6 months they look completely different. It may happen anyway, but I don't know. I don't know if that's going to happen. So I kind of want to do some research on that. I also, like I said, want to soak some of them in vinegar. I want to wash some of them and see if that makes it kind of more interesting. I could always go over them again with other flowers that I get. So I may do something like that, because this is the kind of thing you can layer, which is really nice. I think it just opens up another possibility, and I do love to experiment. I was inspired to do this by a woman on Instagram named Miriam, and her Instagram is Miriam Textiles. I'll put that right here, and I'll link to her Etsy shop down below, because she sells like pamphlets on how to do different kinds of eco printing. And I didn't do I have one of her pamphlets. It's really interesting. That's not where I got this. This is just an experiment. But yeah, so check her out, because her stuff is really cool, and you can find her on Instagram too. That is, I think, where I'm going to end it. I hope that you found this interesting. If you do happen to do this, if you try this out, I would love to see what your results are. I'm finding that I like the wet water colory printing better than the sharp printing, I'm finding. And I think it's because of what I'm using it for, which is for stitching on. However, this is a really fun thing to do with like kids out in the wild. Have them pick flowers and then have them like smash them into fabric, and then you just have a really pretty thing you can frame and like put on the wall. It's like art, right? That's what I got. I hope you found it interesting. If you did, I would love to have you stick around and subscribe so you can see what other things I get up to. And I will see you on Friday for my floss tubes. So with all that being said, please take good care of yourselves and have a good one. Bye.